Welcome to another edition of Pelham School District Today. Today we're going to talk about math. We're really excited about the different math initiatives that we have going on in our school, and who better to talk about that than some of the great people I have with me today. I have Karina Carton from the middle school with us, Kathy Caruso from the high school with us, and Sarah Mirandos, our Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment Director, with us as well. So let's get started. First off, Sarah, can you provide a summary of what we've been working on and some of the things that we have put in place to learn about what our math needs are?
So last year we really had two different committees that were working side by side. We had our K-12 curriculum vertical team that took a look at quite a few different curriculum components. We looked at fluency, we looked at word problems, we also looked at creating some comprehensive vocabulary lists for our students and parents. And then in tandem we also had our district math committee, which was comprised of teachers, administrators, parents, and they really looked at some of the issues that we've been having in math and how we can make some improvements to certain procedures that we have in the district.
What a wonderful way to get all the stakeholders involved, to have a real conversation around everything that's happening and get multiple perspectives. And I know from the high school as well, student voice, and the middle school as well, have opportunities to give input as well into what their feelings are around what's happening. So thank you for doing that. So Kathy, can you tell us about some of those changes that might have come up from the committee suggestions, or just where we're at the high school and what's happening?
So it's exciting that we have changes. We've had the pieces in place that we needed to move our math program forward, but I think now with the district team and the vertical team and the middle school working with the 8th grade coach, it is now starting to put the pieces together. So, for instance, on the math district and the math vertical team, which I have been a member of for the last 4 or 5 years, the issues that have come up were things like vocabulary, as Sarah had said. What we did with vocabulary is we've put an emphasis on the words so that when we're talking with students that we're using the language, that we're consistent in our language, so that when a student hears the word distributive and the word FOIL, they know to make the connection. And using the vocabulary, from there we took it and put it into our writing, which is our communication. When a student can use the language and explain the vocabulary, then we can tell that they understand it. And not only that, when they go to the SAT and they see the language, they're able to interpret it and answer the questions. And it's funny that you say student voice, because all of this came together with a data team that we had years ago and students going through the SAT and looking at the language in the SAT and the things that were important, and communication and being able to explain, and vocabulary, and word problems are the things that they discovered, which was what came up in the district and the vertical team. So we now have identified the areas, we've put something in place, and we are using and putting those initiatives forward. And we're seeing the results. I see incredible results in the classroom. I see kids trying word problems. I see kids identifying math vocabulary words and taking the English word and understanding the math connection, which we had not seen before. So we are seeing growth.
What a great opportunity, though, for students not only to identify that vocabulary at the high school level, and I understand that this is actually being incorporated K-12 with that. Can you explain a little bit how that vocabulary isn't being isolated just to the high school, but it's being instructed across the curriculum?
We identified the vocabulary from the K through 12, and we have vocabulary lists so that throughout the course content, each teacher is using the words so that by the time they get to the high school, it's not new to them. They have heard the words as they went progressively up. They may not use the same word, but define the variables is just tell what the item is in the word problem. So every grade is using the same skill to target the math concepts, which is awesome.
So instead of allowing the vocabulary to be the hindrance in a word problem, right, because they might have the math skill, but they might not have been able to understand what it was asking.
That's right.
And by addressing vocabulary, you're actually improving their math skills as well.
Right. And it's funny because a simple word like 1/3 of the word of, it's amazing how many students don't know that means multiply. And I just had it come up in class the other day. So it's identifying the English. And what's really awesome as well is to connect it to English, because in English you have to write a topic sentence and support it with evidence-based, which is exactly what we're doing in math, and using the vocabulary that supports your idea. And I'm seeing progress. I'm seeing great progress.
Can you also tell me about, I'm a big fan of empowering students and whether that's in their skills or helping each other. Can you tell me about Math Lab and the National Honor Society tutors and how that's empowering those students and helping other students?
The Math Lab is one of the best initiatives I think we've done. So we took activity period, and during the activity period, we have a Math Lab that's run. So our first year, it was more structured because we had a defined task to do. And we added to it as the year went on. Students who had not reached competency the year before was the majority of the focus, and then helping the students in the courses. This year, what we're trying to do is branch out. So what we've done is I sat down with the Math National Honor Society, this young lady, Sarah Egan, who's working with me, and she has reached out to the Math National Honor Society to get volunteers to tutor. So what we have now is, in the Math Lab, we're going to have tutors 3 days a week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which is open to students. But we also have, through guidance with National Honor Society and myself, if a student needs help before school, they can work through Sarah Egan and get a tutor there as well. And then the other thing we've done is I went and took Sarah and personally introduced her to each math teacher and explained to the math teachers the role of the Math Lab, that, you know, if there's too many in their own activity period and it's not quite enough, or they have something going on and they need support, we're here to help them. All they have to do is let me know so that we can control the numbers in case we don't have enough spots, but that we're here to help. We reached out to special ed as well and said if there's something we can do, we're here to help. So it's working, it's growing, it's getting better. What we also did is we took SAT. We had an initiative a couple years ago where we did SAT practice, and it didn't get off the ground last year, but I have 2 young men from the National Honor Society who on Wednesdays in Math Lab are going to run an SAT prep from now till March to see if we could get a regular group of kids coming to improve scores, because we had tried this 3 or 4 years ago and we saw a gain of about 40 to 110 points on kids with SAT. So we are pushing it. We're going to announce it Thursday night at our junior night so that parents hear it, so that if the parents hear it, we've put it in the guidance newsletter so that parents will see it, and then we'll get some kids coming in.
What a great way to give to
Yes.
their community too, and then also empower themselves to be such contributors to their own students,
Right.
and then encourage them to learn their own math skills and teach others.
Yes.
So thanks for that great initiative.
You're welcome.
Let's move some of our questions to the middle school. Karina, math coach. We're very fortunate. You're the first coach in the district. Tell us a little bit about, can you explain what your role is and why it's so important to address some of the skill sets of our teachers and how that does benefit our students?
So, being the math coach, I was able to go to some great professional development this summer with Kathy, actually, where it was all about content coaching, and it kind of developed an idea of a 3-part coaching plan, which is really great because you do the observation and then the post planning or the post conference with the teacher, and that's been really beneficial because it really lends itself nicely to talk with the teachers about what they're doing great, what are areas of improvement, some weaknesses or some strengths that the students are exhibiting, and ways to help to move those students along. So bringing that to the school year this year, right now it's building on familiarity, having me in the classroom as a coach as opposed to a colleague, a math teacher colleague. So it's breaking down those colleague barriers and saying, I'm here to help you. And we're moving into the next phase of working with teachers. And that's been really beneficial because I've also been on the vertical team, and knowing where our focus is in the vertical team, with a big piece of it being problem solving and vocabulary, vocabulary, I've been able to bring those forward to all the teachers and help build their understanding of how it's going to look in the classroom. What's also been really beneficial this year for me, knowing the vocabulary piece, is I've been able to get into science classrooms and build a deeper understanding of the math content that they're doing, whether or not they know it, and what vocabulary words they can use with it. So I've already made several vocabulary lists for science teachers to be able to use in their science classrooms that are math-based skills and content that students are going to see in their math classrooms.
What a great, so you're not only addressing your math teachers, but you're also assisting our science teachers, which I remember from college chemistry that I had. There was a lot of math.
There's
a
a
lot
ton
of
of
math in science, and so that's awesome. So thank you for doing that. Can you talk about this collaboration? It's clearly obvious this year between new principals at the high school and Stacy Mahakian at the middle school, and now also the vertical team and some of the things. What are some of the things that we're working on for collaboration between the two buildings and in some of the areas that were identified that we need to address?
So Kathy and I have been meeting every other week roughly, and our focus has been a lot of different things, a lot of different pieces that are hopefully making a bigger puzzle for us to work on, but one of which is the consistent collaboration of the summatives, making sure that that is the same. But another piece of it, a bigger piece of it this year, is really looking at the data that is being presented both in both classrooms, both at the middle school and at the high school, and being able to have open conversations about ways that we can improve and embellish the content in which we're teaching, and working with the teachers to make sure that they're meeting the criteria and the guidelines of the classroom in order to get them ready for the next step at the high school.
What's great about this year is the collaboration piece. Being able to sit with Karina and go over elements of Algebra 1 is wonderful, but even I took a day and went down to the middle school to meet the 2 8th grade teachers. You know, before you didn't have that camaraderie where it was just, the 8th grade teachers, and now you put a name to a face and say we're all on the team together, and we're working together towards a common goal, which is awesome.
Great, that's good to hear. So it's a question for all three of you. I'd like you to chime in around that same thing around collaboration. A lot of people hear about PLCs. What is PLCs? Why do we devote so much time to our teachers to have that PLC time? So the question to all three of you is, what's the value of PLC? What do we hope to accomplish with PLC time?
PLC is so exciting. And I say that because yesterday we had our PLC, and each week is something different. It could be technology, it could be administration coming in. Yesterday we sat down as a team of math teachers and we took copies of a summative and went through it together. And the idea of being able to sit with your peers and go through content of a certain subject and say what's important, what needs to come out, to make sure that we're all on the same page and we have consistency. Understanding that when kids are graphing, what is it we're looking for? Before you were in isolation and you weren't doing that. The PLC gives you the opportunity to do that. We have decided that we probably need to use the UBD design, and instead of doing tests that are already done, we're going to take them the next time as a team. The teachers before the kids do it with that UBD design in mind. So we're learning ourselves as teachers, which is awesome.
At the middle school, a goal of mine is to develop that common PLC with the math teachers to help build bigger and more rambunctious and more rigorous lessons with the teachers, and to be able to look at what they're doing in the classroom, whether it be an assessment, a project, some kind of summative, and to be able to have an open conversation with the teachers about their expectations. How did it work? How did it not work? Where are areas that we did well with? What are areas that we need to continue to improve and develop? Kind of modeling what the high school already does, but this would be at the middle school level. And that PLC is really helpful because sometimes when you're planning, you just get in your zone and you don't see the bigger picture. And by having an open conversation with all of your colleagues, it's better, and there's more eyes on what you're doing and beneficial for the student outcome.
The other thing that PLC has done, by opening your eyes to what the consistency is, we realize that there are some things, based on data that we saw from test scores where we had weaknesses or strengths, that we needed to have a common goal. So with the use of this new Jamboard that we got at the high school, we have made videos. that could be used all the way from K through 12. And what we're doing is creating a video of teacher instructed how to do a 2-minute set up an equation or whatever. And we are going to develop a place on a district website that we can store these so that if a student needed extra help, they could go there. So that's another plus.
Creating your own resource banks.
That's right.
From the strengths of
That's
the team.
right. Yes.
Oh, what a great idea. Is there anything else to add around the value of a PLC?
I think they've really summarized it quite well. I think one of the things we've really been looking at K to 12 is our assessments, our quality performance assessments, and the PLC time really allows for that additional work. And I know they're working on rubrics and just really revising some different components to make sure that we're providing the best types of assessments for our students.
Before we move on to the elementary school, is there anything else around changes around the middle school or high school that you just jogged your memory that you're like, oh, I wanted to share this?
No,
I could talk all
Oh,
day.
you
Sorry.
But it's great to have that passion. It's
Yeah.
very contagious.
Yes.
Sarah, then, can you tell us a little bit about some of the changes at the elementary school?
So this year is the second year of their My Math program that they're doing, and one of the exciting things that they're piloting in grade 4 is departmentalizing for math and English language arts. So that means that each of the two teams of 2 teachers are breaking up the students so that they teach 2 lessons of math or 2 lessons of reading. And so the response so far from the teachers has been very positive because they can be masters of their subject. And the teachers that are teaching math in particular are so passionate about math, just as these 2 are. So I think we'll continue to see it be beneficial, and hopefully we'll maybe roll it out to some additional grades.
Excellent. Before we move on to one other topic, can you talk about professional development?
Yeah, so we have really worked on providing some great professional development to our staff. We did a lot of summer curriculum work. We brought in an outside consultant last year to work with different math teachers. We were able to send both Karina and Kathy to the Leslie coaching workshop. And we did have a group that just went to NCTM, which was held locally in Boston. And at our last curriculum meeting, the teachers were raving about the different sessions that they had. And so we're really trying to target our math teachers with as much professional development as they want to participate in, because we think it really gives them a broader look at different strategies. And I know the elementary school in particular was really excited about number sense, and you can just see their excitement. So I think as we continue to discover more PD, we'll offer it.
So just to break that down, the NCTM is the National Conference for Teachers of Mathematics.
Correct.
And it was in Boston. It was local for us this year. How fortunate for us to be able to go there and get some ideas, not just from our local area, but from various presenters and teachers from around the country. Nice. One topic that did come up from the math committee, the district math committee, is math placement. So I really want to talk a little bit of what the importance of math placement is, what are the dangers of math placement if someone isn't placed appropriately, and what are our plans going forward with math placement. Who wants to start?
Well, I'll start just by summarizing what we did last year. So we did do a site visit last year in Exeter, and we looked at a very large middle school and how they developed their math placement process, essentially from 5th grade through 9th grade. And what they really did was they looked at the data. So they took the student data, they gave them several different opportunities to prove competence, and they placed them in what they thought was the appropriate placement. Now, the nice thing was that the students could appeal it, so they could retake, it wasn't just a one and done deal, but it was really a collaborative process between the students, the parents, and the teacher in terms of really finding the best placement for these very important math years leading up to Algebra 1.
What's the dangers of a student who's looking to the teachers of mathematics? We've all seen students through social pressures, parental pressures, whatever you want to name, that they want to be in the top math, but maybe they're just not appropriate in the top math. And that's okay. What are the dangers of inappropriately placing students?
Well, before I talk about the inappropriateness of it, I'd like to say that math is, there's this feeling that kids can't do math, and that's not so. It is not. Math is 90% about attitude. And if you have the right attitude, both from the teaching side and the student side, you can go wonders. beyond. And I've never seen a case where you can't. But a student has to have the basics. They do. And when they don't have those basics, you're setting them up for failure. It's, trying to get them to do something they're not capable. If we put them at the appropriate level, then we can build that foundation, and then we can do anything from there. The foundation is so critical. So I believe in making sure that we appropriately place, because otherwise you're telling a kid that they can't do it, and that's not fair. It's not fair. It's not right, because they can do it. They can.
And building that confidence is what's so crucial. That confidence piece is in the middle school. What we see a lot of is that if they feel they can't do it at any step of the way, they shut down completely. And one of the biggest things I always tell students is it's not that you can't do it. You're not there yet. It's that changing that mindset that yes, they can do it, but maybe something being placed in the wrong class, it's getting their confidence to be much lower than what it should be and what it really is. So building that confidence by knowing the foundational work is far more important than rushing through trying to be the in the top or the best or the highest class possible. Understanding a full rounded math student as opposed to just the facts or just the fluency. Understanding the whole piece of it is where we need to kind of focus on to make sure the students are ready for that next level.
That's absolutely true, and we know from Vygotsky, right? There's my master's in education coming back with the zone of proximal development is more about appropriately placing where their level is at, because that's where we gain the most learning. When we're too high above it or too far below it, where it's not appropriate for the students, and really that is a shift as we move to competency-based education too, is where's that just right learning for all of our students, and part of that is our math placement process and making sure that we are appropriately placing them for their best chance of success. So thank you for tackling that. I'm glad that it came up as one of the areas that we need to look at, and I look forward to seeing the results of what comes out of those changes. I don't have any other questions. This has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you all taking the time to share with us all the wonderful things that are happening in math. I'm very pleased to hear about the new collaboration, the energy, and the committee work that is bringing up great ideas, and we're willing to tackle those tough conversations at all levels and say, this isn't judgment on anyone, this is where we're at and where do we go from here. Any last words from anyone?
I'd be happy to come back and talk about math anytime.
You're always invited. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.